From the Berkshires to the Sound, from wherever you live in MLB America, this is Inside the Parker. You give us 22 minutes and we'll give you the scoop on Major League Baseball. Now, here's Baseball Hall of Fame voter number 57.
You have another hot take.
Will not NOT make the playoffs.
Shohei me the money.
Rob Parker.
Come on! I've been covering Major League Baseball for almost 40 years now. In New York, in Cincinnati, in Detroit, in LA. I love this game. Let's go! Welcome into the podcast, and I'm your host, Rob Parker. And what a show we have for you today. Before we even get started, remember, press this button, the subscribe button, so that you're always here, always up to date with all the best coverage of Major League Baseball. As you know, I've been covering baseball since 1986. I love the sport. This is the place for your baseball fix. Inside the Parker, sponsored by Cuffin Season. Lock in the flavor your taste buds will love at cuffinseason.us. Get yours today. And for an extra 10% off, use the code MLBro in all caps. Welcome into the podcast. I'm your host, Rob Parker. What a show we have for you today. Very special guest, former big league manager Dusty Baker drops by. We'll dive into his illustrious career and all the great things that Dusty is doing right now that he is no longer managing. Plus, we'll talk with author John Cirillo, who wrote an interesting book that ties Elvis Presley, Aretha Franklin, and Babe Ruth all together. That and much more. Let's go.
Here comes the big interview. Listen and learn.
Oh, it's so good.
Now let's welcome in former Major League manager Dusty Baker, joining us here on Inside the Parker, who's retired now. Dusty, what's happening? You're looking good. What's up, my man?
Well, thank you, man. There's a whole lot less stress in my life, but it's different though. I'm staying busy, doing a lot of things. I'm doing some part-time consulting with the Giants and, following my grandkids around. They just left and hoping my son, makes to the big league sometime soon.
Oh, that would be awesome. And let's start with, you have a new book out called Crossroads. Tell us about the book.
Well, it's a book about my life, and I wanted to write it before I passed away, and I didn't want somebody else to write it. And I wrote it not only for a lot of people that in a hopeless situation, because we have a lot of a lot of stuff going on in our country and in the world. And I also wanted my grandkids to know me, wanted my son and daughter to know me. And, we really don't know much about our parents, only what our aunties and uncles tell us, because our parents, I don't know about your parents. They didn't tell me much about them.
No, I'm with you, Dusty. I think it's so important. I have great nephews.
Yeah.
And I give them information about who is your uncle? Do you know what I do? Do you know what,
right?
Like I want you to know what college I went to. I want you to know that. I think it's important.
Right. Yeah. And the struggles that we went through are no different than yours, just a different time of day. And so, and I talked about, made myself vulnerable to the world, but that's the only way that I could come across in truth and as much honor and dignity as I could. And, nobody deserves to know everything about you, but, a lot of people deserve and need to hear, some things about you. And, the fact that, on a different scale, I don't care where you are and how what you're doing or how successful you are. It's all scaled to problems. We all got the same problems. I don't care who you are. And now we're going to deal with the solutions.
100%. And more people know. And I think when you write a book and you you're a little vulnerable and let people know that all the success you had as a baseball player, Dusty, as a manager and in your life, that you came from situations you had to get out of, and other people think they're hopeless and, I can't pick myself up. It's doable. And sometimes reading about other people saying, how did Dusty Baker do it? How did he make it? And I think it's really important. So I'm interested. I can't wait to read your book.
All right.
Tell me about the wine too, the Baker family wines.
Well, Baker Family Wines, we started Me and my winemaker, who I had met through Michael Mondavi. I was on the advisory staff for a number of years, going to lunches and dinners with Canandaigua and Southern Wine and Spirits, their distributors. And so I said, "Hey, man, let me try this." And the very few, African Americans in the industry and in that business. And so, we started as a gentlemanly thing in my backyard, and then we spread to San Francisco, and then we came back to Sacramento. And so we have 9 varietals called, Baker Family Wines. And even Hank Aaron, before he passed, he says, "Hey, man, I want to be part of your company." I said, "No, man, I don't need that pressure." And I said, "Hey, I don't know when I can pay you back." He said, "Well, don't worry about it." And he says, "Pay back my estate." And he said, "But I do want a bold Cabernet Sauvignon." And he says, "I do mean bold." So I went to my winemaker and I said, "Hey, man, Hank wants to be part of our company." And I said, "What do you want to name it?" And, 755, Hammer and Hank 755. So, like I said, we got 9 varietals and it's been fun. I mean, it's a tough industry right now, all over the world. Less and less people, well, especially young people, are drinking wine. But, I'm glad we didn't get too big too soon because, see, a lot of the big boys are hurting right now. And so, we're in a great position and a great, situation.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's always great branch out and doing stuff. But
Yep.
Dusty, I got to say this, as somebody who's covered Major League Baseball for 40 years and being around and seeing you and what I always thought you were the coolest baseball player, from the wristbands to the toothpick. I'm just, I've always said that about you to other people. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's the coolest baseball player ever. But let's just talk about, your career and just the situations and circumstances. Obviously, with the Atlanta Braves, you're on deck when Hank Aaron hits home run number 715.
Hmm.
You're credited with starting the high five. There's so many like moments for you in baseball history. Um, and I always think of you as a Dodger, even though you were really a Brave. Do you think of yourself as a Dodger or a Brave? And I know you played for a couple other teams as well.
Well, I consider myself like I was born on the Braves, so to speak, in baseball. And I was 18 years old, but I came into my own and I became a man when I got to LA.
That's what I think.
Right. And when I got to LA, one of the reasons I wanted to leave Atlanta is because we were losing. And I got tired of losing. And coming to LA, man, you right away think about you're gonna be on a winner. And that was a team that I grew up idolizing when I was a kid in Riverside. Tommy Davis was my hero. And I was wearing number 12 with the Braves. I've always had number 12 because of Tommy Davis.
Wow.
And then when I met my idol, in baseball, because I had different idols. I had like Elgin Baylor in basketball, I had Bob Hayes in track, Gale Sayers in football, but in baseball it was Tommy Davis. And when I met him, he was even a better person after I met him than he was before I was idolizing him.
I love to hear that because people always say, "Oh, you don't want to meet your idols because you know you're going to get your heart broken."
Well,
And
there was a couple times I got my heart broken,
I
but
believe.
yeah, but not with him. I mean, he was a real gentleman, and he was like, "Hey, baby, how you doing?" Every time I see him, it was a terms of endearment that he spoke to all of us, and I felt like he was really speaking to me, but he was speaking to all of us.
That's amazing. I do want to ask you about the being on deck with Hank Aaron, just knowing the
Mhm.
moment and everything. Like, what was that feeling like? I mean, obviously, it was just. I still get goosebumps when I see the video. Like, and
Well,
you were there kneeling down. You know what I mean? Getting ready to.
but like we're on deck circle like we always were, and he told me, he said, "Hey, man, I'm gonna get this over with right now." And I said, "Okay." I mean, every time he told me he was going to do something, he did it. And it was a cold night, and I mean, it was the coldest night that I had seen in Atlanta since I had been there. And so next thing I know, here comes the pitch. He hits it out of the park. And I could have been the first one to run up there, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to take the spotlight away from Hank. And what led up to that was a whole bunch of pressure and a whole bunch of times when Hank wasn't happy.
Oh, I
and
bet.
like he was in the room all the time. I mean, imagine having to hide in your room, because Hank had one room that he slept in, and he had another room that was registered under, and so I was his dummy room, and
Right.
then he had his bodyguard Calvin Wardlow. So it was Calvin, Ralph Gard, myself, and Paul Casanova with Hank almost daily. And we were kind of in charge of making him laugh or just making him relax. And he was a guy that was like my father on one hand, and he was like my uncle on the other hand, where you could tell him anything. And he was good to all of us, white, black, Latin players. I mean, he was an example of your best player also being your best citizen. And see, I haven't seen that a whole bunch, you know,
Right.
uh, and 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 he was our leader.
Yeah. That's the impression you get from Hank, and just being well-rounded and solid and level, and like you say, treating everybody the same way. And now I want to ask you about the Dodgers and the high five, which is incredible to me because there's a picture of you guys actually doing it, where
Right.
people credit you, and I'm just forgetting
Glenn Burke.
Glenn Burke, the other
Yeah.
player.
Yeah.
Just that scenario, because I think you had hit your 30th home run. Is that what it was? And
Yeah.
that gave the Dodgers four players with 30 home runs on the same team, which had never happened, I don't think. And then you're coming around third base. What was that? Did you know you had done something different or no?
Well, what happened was Reggie Smith had his 30 and Garvey was still playing. He had his 30 and Ron Say had his 30. And so the only guys that were still playing were Steve Garvey and myself. And we had a 4-game series against the Astros, and Reggie Smith told JR that I was going to hit it off him on Sunday. But he told him this on Thursday. I like, Reggie, I'm hitting about a buck 50 off this guy lifetime. And he strikes me out, 2 out of every 3 at bats, and nobody really struck me out then more than JR. And man, it came down to that last day, my next to last at bat. And you know, when he threw it, I hit his outside fastball and went over the center field, left center field fence, and I knew I'd hit it. And I remember seeing Jim Gilliam when I was rounding third base. I mean, he was as close a coach to me as I'd ever had, before. And I came across home plate, and Glenn Burke was on deck. And Glenn, I didn't do it. Everybody gives me credit. Glenn did it because Glenn threw his hand up, and then I hit his hand, and they say that was the start of the high five. But I really don't know if anybody needs credit for that. It's Glenn. I was just reciprocating to
Well, I
Glenn.
think I think it's both of you guys, because you can't do it by
Yeah,
yourself.
that's
You know
true.
what I
That's
mean?
true. That's
You
true.
can't
That's
do it by
true.
yourself. So I
Yeah.
think both of you guys, but I think that's legendary, that, and people go back to, like, it hadn't been done before that, which I think that's another thing that is so cool. Our
Yes.
guest, of course, is Dusty Baker. For people who don't know, his first name is Johnny.
Johnny B. Baker Jr.
There you go. But sometimes people got Dusty. They never know your real first name.
Sure.
So
Well,
uh,
no, and nobody in my family's ever called me anything but Dusty. There's only one Johnny, Johnny B. That's my dad,
that's what.
and
Yeah.
that's Pops.
There you go. Joining us here on Inside the Parker, of course, I do want to talk about, obviously, you winning the World Series. You managed six different teams. You finally come back. You take over an Astros team that was scandal ridden. Everything, you get it righted. You turn it around, and you finally get that World Series that was just elusive, because you won Manager of the Year 3 times. You did a lot as a manager, turned a lot of teams around, but just couldn't get over the hump. What was that like? Did you exhale? What was that when you secured the World Series win?
Well, but first though, a lot of people say I turned them around. They were good when I got there, but they were scorned all over the country. I mean, I never heard teams booed as mightily as they were. But what helped was COVID. It's hard to imagine that, but the fact that there was no stands, excuse me, no fans in the stands.
Right.
And I mean, that made it a lot easier. And once we came back, then you saw when we went to New York and went to LA. I mean, I've never heard us booed that much, but um, they're a good bunch of guys, and it helped me to the fact that I wasn't there when all the scandal was going on. And I told him I didn't have anything to do with this. I'm here new. Plus the Lord to me put me in that situation because see, I really couldn't get a job. And had it not been for that scandal, then I'd have probably never been hired. Especially when you're a World Series team, they don't get rid of their managers. And as an African American manager, you don't inherit a good team. Most of the
No,
time,
it's
you want
always
to.
the worst team going, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
worst team nobody
exactly.
wants, right?
And then you're expected to save them, and they expected to win it all. But yeah, it was a huge relief, to win, especially the fact when I lost in 2002 to the Angels. Back in the day, negative motivation was real. I don't know how your parents might have been, but my dad would say, "Oh man, you ain't gonna do that," and I like, "Hey, I'll show you. You can't use negative motivation now with these kids." But my dad told me at that time, he goes, "Son, when you lost tonight." He goes, man, I don't know if he'll ever win one or not. And that was my motivation.
Wow, yeah.
I mean, my dad had passed, and also my motivation was the fact that my mom had passed that year, and the year before Hank Aaron had passed, and we lost to the Braves. And so I was like, okay, Hank, okay, I know you're rooting for the Braves on this one in this World Series, but the next year I said, okay, Hank, they already won one. It's time for you to root for me now. And so I had a lot of people, a lot of spiritual people, a lot of things in this country, and a lot of people told me, said, "Man, we were pulling for you." And there's something to that power of positive thinking, especially by the masses. And I think people send us, some good vibes.
I think that was the case. People in baseball, they wanted to see you win. You deserved it. You had put in your time. A legendary figure, both as a player and a manager, a long time. Not too many guys get six teams to manage. I mean, that's
Really.
Dusty. Tell me why you're involved in playing with heart.
Well, I had a stroke 13 years ago. And I was fortunate enough to have the stroke while I was in the hospital. And so at that point in time, I was lucky to really be alive. And stroke or heart attacks and it are the leading cause of death in our country. And so, playing with heart, I think is necessary that people go and check their bad cholesterol, the LDLC, and especially I don't care how you're feeling. A lot of times you can feel good, but you're a walking time bomb. So, that's why I'm involved to try to help people, to help themselves.
Yeah. And just tell us more about the program. What should people do? Is it just a matter of, making yourself available to be checked and going to the doctor, going to get checked out?
Yeah,
What,
you said it right. I mean, you got to go to the doctor. And you got to go to the doctor, have blood tests, and they will tell you what to do. And it's a different number for everybody. There's no set number what your bad LDLC is. When you're about to have a stroke or anything like that, it varies per person. And so it doesn't take anything other than just going and get it checked. And there are a lot of people that don't want to go and get anything checked until it's too late. So I'm just trying to help people, to help themselves.
and here, Dusty, 13 years after your stroke and being involved and whatnot, how do you feel? And do you feel like you have, your life in check because now you're being checked, you know what you need to
Mhm.
do and what you need to do to take care of yourself? Do you
Well,
feel that?
I'm on top of it, and I think back on my stroke. I could have been a person that can't talk right now, or couldn't walk, or didn't see my grandchildren grow up because my grandchildren are like 4 and 6, and I think about not seeing my son play ball. There's a lot of things that I'm grateful for because my stroke, like I said, was diagnosed very, very early. I was lucky. I was in the hospital when I had my stroke. Now, how many people are in the hospital when they had the stroke and I was about to be discharged to go in Chicago to get on a plane? And so, it's part of my campaign to try to help people. And, I'm urging everybody to uh, tune in to playingwithheart.com to learn some more.
Dusty, very important information and knowledge for people, and I appreciate it. And thanks for sharing that with us. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome.
Again, Dusty Baker, we appreciate you. Again, people pick up his book, Crossroads, check it out. And of course, check out Baker Family Wines. So Dusty, man, we appreciate everything. Thank you for joining us here on Inside the Parker. And you know, we run into each other every so often at the ballpark.
Yes, we do.
Hope to see you soon, my man. Thank you.
All right, bro. Thank you.
In case you missed Rob Parker on the MLB Network, here's his latest appearance on MLB Now.
Yet another honor for you, Rob. You're being honored by the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. You got the Wilkinson Innovator Award. Congratulations, my friend.
BK, thank you. And you know what? It would be easy for me to say this is all about me, but it's not. It's about my staff at MLBro.com. The staff has done an unbelievable job the last 6 years covering Black and brown Major League Baseball players. You know where this is one of my passions. I believe in it. I want to make sure that we preserve the history and the stories of Black baseball players, both past and present. So J.R. Gamble's my managing editor, and Mark Gray is my assistant managing editor, and the staff. They deserve this award, BK, as much as I do.
When Rob was a newspaper columnist, he lived by this motto: if I'm writing, I'm ripping. Let's bring in a writer or broadcaster, old or new.
Now let's welcome into the podcast. He is an author, longtime friend of mine, Mr. John Cirillo. We call him Mr. C. He's written an amazing book, Elvis, Aretha, and the Babe. 3 times the bell would toll. Mr. C, how are you? What's going on?
Robbie, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, and look forward to talking to you.
Yes. Tell us about this book. Anytime you could pair those 3 together. Elvis, Aretha, we got 2 singers, but then you got the Babe Ruth in there. Tell us how they all collide and how this book came together.
I was in Newport, Rhode Island, a number of years ago, and all of the TV stations were playing Elvis songs and talking about it was August 16th and it was the anniversary of his death. The next year, I'm in my car with my beautiful wife, Fran. We're driving to the beach, and the broadcaster says, we have the radio on, Aretha Franklin has just passed away. And it was August 16th. I said, oh my God, what are the odds of the Queen of Soul and the King of Rock dying on the same date?
So right, now almost impossible. Almost impossible, right.
Right. So now my curiosity gets piqued, and I go on the internet, and I must have just Googled, famous people who have died on August 16th. And Babe Ruth was the first one that came up. I think it was at that point I said, this may be a book. And it's materialized, so many years later. But what had happened, I had most of the book written with the research that I did and interviews that I did. I interviewed Bobby Rush, who played with Elvis on the same stage. He's still alive. He's going to be performing in New York August 22nd, a week after the death date. But Bobby told me that on the night of the performance, he was going to go on stage, not the same time as Elvis, but the same day. And they didn't want a black man swiveling his hips the way Elvis did. Talk about prejudice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Elvis told them at the theater, if Bobby doesn't swivel his hips, I don't swivel my hips.
Mm.
And that was it. They both performed, and Bobby told me the day Elvis died, he looked in the mirror and he said, I can't believe the impact that Elvis had on my life because of what he did on that night. It's a beautiful story.
It is a beautiful story. Our guest is John Cirillo. He's written a new book, Elvis, Aretha, and the Babe. And Babe Ruth, can we tell me your research on Babe and how he died or the scenario that played out for
Yeah,
Babe Ruth,
you know,
of course, the American icon.
one interesting story. A buddy of mine from grammar school, Peter McMahon, was the longest running detective in New York City at the time of his retirement. And Peter told me he had a poster of Babe Ruth that he bought at Yankee Stadium, and he had framed because he was and still is an avid sports fan. And that poster has hung in his basement wherever he's moved. And he's also conveyed, the legacy of Babe Ruth to his kids.
Tell us about where people can get the book. It's called Elvis, Aretha, and the Babe by John Cirillo. Where can people get the book?
It's up on Amazon already. You could order on Amazon. The hardcover is $54, but more reasonably priced is the soft cover for $24.99. And also, I was fortunate to connect with Archway at Simon and Schuster, which is a great publisher for writers that don't have agents and want to self-publish. So if you go to archwaypublishing.com, you could also purchase it there.
Well, good luck and congratulations. I'm looking forward to reading my copy of Elvis, Aretha, and the Babe. Mr. C, thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, Robbie. Thank you so much.
Now, here's the best from MLBbro.com.
Mike Matthew here with MLBro, and I'm here to let you know what's popping. There has not been a lot of positives to talk about when it comes to the St. Louis Cardinals, but there is one diamond in the rough, and that is none other than MLBbro Jordan Walker. After going 1-for-4 in last night's defeat against the Philadelphia Phillies, Walker now holds on to a 10-game hitting streak. The 24-year-old has at least 2 hits in 4 of his last 10 outings. With 116 games played, Walker is having his best season of his young career. He is batting .285 with 23 home runs and 83 RBIs, which ranks 4th in the majors. The Stone Mountain, Georgia native has truly been a highlight in a season full of lowlights for the Cardinals. So let's see if he can finish strong, because I believe that Walker will continue to be great. And that's what's popping.
For more, right now, go to MLBbro.com.
It's time for a trip down memory lane here on Inside the Parker.
Rob Parker has covered Major League Baseball for 40 years. Now, let's relive a memorable moment of his career.
In 1992, I covered a history-making World Series north of the border. After 24 years of Major League Baseball north of the border, the Toronto Blue Jays claimed Canada's first World Series championship, beating the Atlanta Braves in 6 games. Indeed, it was history-making. Major League Baseball arrived in Montreal with the Expansion Expos in 1969. The Blue Jays arrived in the American League in the 1977 expansion. And when the Blue Jays won the World Series, they became just the 3rd expansion franchise to win a World Series championship, joining the New York Mets in 1969 and 1986, and the Kansas City Royals back in 1985. Pat Borders was named the World Series MVP in 1992. The Blue Jays catcher batted .450 with 1 home run and 3 RBI. But it was a special World Series for Dave Winfield, who won his first World Series ring after 19 years in the majors. Afterwards, Winfield said, quote, "America's game is now going to Canada for a while. Canada deserves it," end quote. Canada enjoyed winning its first World Series so much in 1992 that the Blue Jays won again in 1993, beating the Philadelphia Phillies to win back-to-back World Series north of the border. Hey, this is Rob Parker. Come back all season long, every week, as I chronicle my 40 years of covering Major League Baseball. And if you missed any episodes, go to MLBbro.com and catch up.
Make way for weekend wagers.
Yo, it's Sean Bo. Fire up those bed naps. Let's go. We just keep splitting the difference week to week. Last Friday, 1 win, 1 loss brings the season total to 20 wins, 17 losses. But look, Friday, August 14th, let's go 2-0 with a bro. Starting with the under. Give me the under 7 total runs between the Marlins and the Reds. Chase Burns, the melanated Mal Marauder, has been filthy, and I think he's going to continue to do that through Friday. Then for 2-0, let's take the Yankees and the Blue Jays under 8 total runs. The Blue Jays have been awful, even at home, and the Yankees still missing their MLB bros at the plate. Let's go 2-0 with a bro, and for more, go to MLB Bro.
Hi, I'm Rob Parker, the founder and editor of MLBbro.com, where we cover black and brown major leaguers. 75% of the content will be about the current black and brown stars in Major League Baseball. The other 25%, we'll take a look back at some of the great black players. On the site, there'll be a ton of great written stories and videos and features.
MLB Bro, because you need to know.
MLB fans, when it comes to Major League Baseball, no one covers it better than the Odd Couple.
Facts. I am the baseball king.
First, second, third, and home.
We're leading shows with baseball.
Game over.
They don't watch it.
They don't know the game.
All in one place. Right here on Fox Sports Radio.
I love baseball.
In the words of New York TV legend, the late Bill Jorgensen, thanking you for your time this time until next time. Rob Parker, out.
He can't get it. This could be an inside to Parker.
See you next week. Same bat time, same bat station.